Damian Keys here. Welcome to the hashtag Ask Damo Show. Do you like that? It's my new thing. Brilliant. We are live on Instagram. We are live on Facebook. If you want to get involved on Facebook, if you want to get involved on Instagram, then join in. We'll try and get some of your comments and your questions in as well. We have some questions, which we have Morgan on the wheels of steel.
Hello guys.
We have some stuff as well. I love stuff. Ooh. Let's go with stuff. Ooh. If you want to send some stuff in, Morgan will put in the address below. Oh, look who it is. Sarah, thank you so much. That is a wicked t-shirt. I will be wearing this. And there's a note. Sarah Brown, who actually had her single out last week, which I think is amazing. She says, I would never expect you to wear this, but I'm gonna. But having watched your channel for so long, I always hoped the day would come that I had some merch to send. Thank you so much for everything you do. Your drive and passion for helping musicians is so inspiring and appreciated. I look forward to that coffee next time you're in the motherland. The motherland being Wales, because we are both from the motherland. Sarah, thank you so much. I absolutely will wear this. And when I'm not wearing it, we're going to stick it back here. Love this. If anyone's got any merch, then check it out. If you want to check out Sarah's stuff, she's got a new single which is called Living in Sin, and that is available on Spotify and iTunes and everywhere else, so go and check that out. I will put a link in the description. Good. Morgan.
Yeah. You ready for question one?
Smash it.
All right, here we go. Question number one. How do I get a better bass tone? I've been trying to find my sound, and that's from Alex 2002.
It's a great question, and I'm going to, because as a bass player, I picked this question as well because being a bass player, it's something I could bring value to, but I want this to be about sound in general, because this is something that I have been involved in for a long time, not just as a bass player, but as a bass teacher. So I started as a bass teacher in the 1990s, the late 1990s. When I was 19, I've been a bass teacher for a long, long time, done thousands of gigs. Tone is very, very important to me, and having taught thousands of students with different guitars, with different gear, there are a few things that I would say, and it goes the same thing with guitar, and it goes the same thing as anything else. Firstly, I would say, I'm going to pick up a guitar. This is an electric instrument, but it has acoustic properties, okay? Now this is very, very important for any instrument. Same thing with drums, same thing with guitar, same thing with anything else. It's all about the acoustic properties, which means if I play a note, just with my fingers, if I play it harder, you get different frequencies. There's more mid frequencies that come punching out of this guitar. So before we start worrying about gear and spending thousands of pounds on gear, let's actually worry about technique. Let's worry about right hand technique, left hand technique, understanding the knowledge of how to make this thing sound good with these babies, these bad boys, before we start worrying too much about, about amps. Put that there. Before we start worrying about amps or effects or guitars, because whilst they do make some difference, they are minimal. These are the first and foremost line of your weapons when it comes to being a musician. Then after that, we start looking at your instruments that you're going to play. Now that bass is probably worth about $2.5 grand. It's a 1976 Fender P bass. However, I also have a fake, yes, that's right, not a Squier, a fake Fender Jazz bass, which I bought for 120 quid. And I love it, it's amazing. You don't need to have expensive instruments, but you do need to have the right type of instrument. And for me, I like a heavy guitar because that's where the sound comes from. That's where you get all the low end of the bass. So are you going to play with your pick? Are you going to play with fingers? What guitar are you going to use? You don't need loads and loads of guitars, but you do need how to get the right sound. And the amount of times that someone will have come to me with some piece of £1,000 piece of shit driftwood guitar that I'll go, I'm really sorry, it's just a shit guitar. And then they tell me why I'm wrong and why the guitar's amazing. But you know, you go and check out through the annals of history, you go and check out the guitars, the basses that are used live, that are used in the studio, and you will see a thread of very similar guitars, and it will come back to those classics depending on what music you're in. And if you're going down a funk guitar, you're probably going to have a Strat, and if you're going to have a punk bass player, it's probably going to be a P bass. And so whilst there are options, you will see these threads of similarity amongst instruments. When it comes down to modern day bass sounds in an amp or guitar sounds in an amp, how can you possibly replace the sound of a big valve amp? How can you do that? You know, yes, there's Kempers, which are, you know, I'm on the side of they're getting better and better, and they're really good. I know people don't like them, but you know, that big valve amp sound, when you're going to go on tour, I use Orange AD200s, which is basically an orange bass amp. I have two AD200 bass heads and two Ampeg cabs, getting technical now. I used to use all Ampeg stuff. It used to blow up a lot. Orange stuff just doesn't blow up. But for me, it's more about having something that moves air. I learned this from Bruce. It's about moving air because that's where the sound comes from. And so if you've got something that you can crank up and move some air, that usually makes a big difference. But we're getting into technical stuff now. The most important thing is these, and that's the same thing with drums, guitar, violin, bass, your voice, everything, not voice with these, everything is about how you're actually playing the instrument with yourself. Then after that, we need to look at the techniques of, are you in time? Because that is a big part of your bass sound. Are you in time? How is your feel? Are you playing slightly behind the beat? Are you pushing the beat? Are you playing bang on the beat? What's the feel like of your bass playing, of your guitar playing, of your drumming? What are the parts that you're playing? Are you overcomplicating things? These are the way you get more power in your sound. And then lastly, once you've got some good gear, some decent gear, the last thing you need to do is get out there and you need to be gigging a lot. If you are a musician, and you are not gigging on Saturday, I have a question for you. Why are you not gigging? And if you say money, then I poo-poo that. Because for me, if you're not gigging, if you're a musician and you're not gigging, first and foremost, if you're a musician, first and foremost, that's your thing, and you're not gigging on Saturday, in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. Harsh, but true.
What is the best time to publish a YouTube video?
We're talking YouTube specifically. This is something that I think everyone worries about. When should they post? Now, firstly, we're talking YouTube as opposed to across the board on all social media. But there are trends that people like to post at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. But I find this really weird because if you actually think of consumption as opposed to trends, your audience is going to be different to someone else's audience. They're going to live in a different area. They're going to be a different age. They're going to have different things going on in their life. What happens if you are an artist like Dido and your audience is kind of mums of newborns to sort of young mums? They're going to have a different body clock to a musician who's up until 3 in the morning and then not getting up till 11 o'clock the next morning. When they're looking at stuff is going to be different depending on where they are in the world, depending on what they are doing with their day. Some people work full-time, some people don't. So it depends what your demographic is, and that's outside of just music, that's across the board on YouTube. So your job is to experiment. But let me give you a couple of other things to think about when you're posting, especially on YouTube. I hear this question a lot: when should I post? And when I actually go and look at their posts, I'm seeing massive gaps. So if you're going to say when's the optimal time to post, let's just say, for example, it's 5 o'clock in the evening, for example. So we put it on 5 o'clock. If you then don't post anything for the next 2 weeks, then why do you need to post at 5 p.m.? What was the big thing that you needed to post on that day at 5 p.m.? The other thing is, if you are going to post something and then leave it on there for the next 2-3 days and not get into your comments and start actually replying to people, then there's no respect for the audience either. So for me, it's not just about when you post, it's everything that goes around that. And I don't like seeing it when people post at the optimal times and they're not doing the most important bit, which is how are they going to engage, which is how they're going to promote it. That's the biggest bit. I've put something on YouTube. How are you going to get people to see it? Rather than just saying, I just want to post it and just get as much out of it as I can and then leave, shut the door and just hope for the best. Why not say, doesn't matter when you post it, what matters is what you do for the next 5, 6 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours to actually get people into seeing this piece of content. That to me is much more important. So I would actually think about the question of when's the best time to post? It depends on your audience, but what's the best thing to do as soon as I post? And that is distribution. That's how you actually spread the word to get people into seeing this piece of content. Now, if you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, and other things, I think there is a real shift of what's happened. A couple of years back, It was all just chronological on Facebook, on Twitter. So it was about being the best time, because if you posted at a time when everyone was going to be at home from work and on Facebook, or at home from work and on Twitter, then they would see it in chronological order. But now the algorithms kicked in, and I'm seeing things on my Instagram from 3 or 4 days ago. Same thing with Facebook. It's trying to show me the things that it knows that I want to see. So it's not as crucial to post at a specific time on those platforms as it once was. So, and Morgan has one more piece of advice which we were talking about earlier on, which I hadn't thought of, because you post all my YouTube content. So come on in.
I'll say the one last thing is make sure that your YouTube video goes into people's subscription boxes, because quite often there's something wrong with like the just subscription boxes in general, and you'll post a video but it won't actually go into people's feed. So go get one of your friends to go on there, log in, go subscriptions, make sure your video's actually gone into it, otherwise none of your subscribers will see the video.
So in case we didn't catch that, so effectively what we're saying is when you post something on YouTube, a subscription notification will basically be, which will go to everyone else's YouTube. You'll go into their some subscribed videos. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes for whatever reason, YouTube just misses a trick and it doesn't get put into the subscription box. Now, what you have is just a dummy YouTube, so that you can always make sure that you're checking against whatever you're uploading to make sure it does go into that subscription box. So that's one way of doing it. If you don't want to set up just a separate YouTube just to make sure something's working, which is a good thing to do. You could do the same thing with Instagram, just setting up a fake Instagram account, not because you want to have subscribers, purely because you can then check out what you upload, how you want it to look, you know, especially when you do things like highlight stories, how it will look, because there's certain gaps in between. Just having things that you can practice on without having to practice and annoying all your audience is just a good tip. But if not, then you can just go on Friends and say, can you just check this, make sure it's gone into the subscription box, because if you don't, people will miss it, and that's when you start losing lots of your views.
Yeah.
Good, that's a really good tip, that, really good tip. Good.
Question number three. How do you manage your goals / tasks? Do you use a tick list approach / diary? And that's from James G. Bastow.
Okay, so this is quite interesting. So this is coming at it from more of a holistic point of view of not just being a musician. So I have 2 businesses here. I have another business up in Crewe, which is north of England. I've got the book which has come out straight after this. I'm off to go and write another book. I don't think I'm the busiest human being in the world, but I like to stay busy. I like to achieve things, and I like to make things happen. At the same point, I'm a musician and I'm a creative, and I am not particularly very organized. So I have a couple of rules which I stick by, which is I always start from the end and work backwards. What is it that I am trying to achieve with my targets, and then work backwards from there. If I'm doing that, then I can put into place what I need to be able to get there. Now, for me, what I need is time. Time is my most valuable asset. And so for me, it's all about the people around me that can take stuff off me so that I'm only doing the most important things. That's rule number 1 for me. If I'm doing something that I see as menial or not working towards the end goal, I'm angry at myself. That's when I get to the end of the day and I just think I haven't got enough done. It's because I'm doing too many menial admin-y type jobs which aren't that important. I want the big wins at all time. Now, after the people, because I understand lots of people watching this going, I can't afford to hire people, totally fair enough. The next thing is how I organize myself. Firstly, I only look at the big priorities. Secondly, I make sure I've got these targets into play. Then once I do that, I start to look at how I can organize myself. I am just not a very organized person. So I have a PA, Katie, who is telling me where to go at what time. She gives me ideas of what I need to do when I get there. Very, very, very helpful. If I didn't have that, my iPhone is in my life. Everything is on my iPhone. I have reminders all day on my iPhone. I have a calendar on my iPhone. I have lists on my iPhone. I have things to do on my iPhone. Everything is one foot in front of my face. And you know, I probably charge my iPhone up. I mean, most people will charge it up overnight and then that'll keep them going to the next day. I will get through 2 charges a day. So I have to I can't have 1 charge through a day because I'm on it all the time. Whether that's healthy or not, I don't know, I'm just saying it works for me. I'm constantly on it. It runs my entire life. If I can find a new system or a new app that helps speed things up, I'll go for it. Every single time you message me on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snapchat, every single one of those, I have my notifications on. So I try and get to as many as possible. And that's usually between, with all of them, it's usually between, not including emails, between 100 and 150 messages a day, which I'm trying always to make sure I'm bringing you guys value and replying, because I think that's really, really important. But I have another thing, which is if a job's worth doing, to try and do it there and then. If not, I set aside time. It's really important that I'm working with you guys on helping you with your targets, with your goals, and with your career. So I set aside 2 to 3 hours a day, usually towards the end of the day when things have calmed down a little bit, where I can sit down and I can go through everything, starting with my YouTube comments. Next thing, I'll go through my Facebook DMs and my Facebook comments. I'll prioritize Facebook comments on a video more so than a DM, purely because of the algorithm, so it's a selfish thing. Then I go into my Instagram, then I'll go into my Twitter, then I'll go into LinkedIn, etc., etc. Emails I try and do as and when, but also I farm out my emails to Katie, so I don't have to do my own emails. So effectively, I'm trying at all times to do as much as I can, multitask and get people in and around me. But I'm not organized, so therefore I'm like everyone else who's a musician and a creative. I'm trying to keep myself organized. When it comes to being motivated, I need to achieve things. I need to have those targets in place of what I'm working towards, because if I don't have those, it's too easy for me to just flutter through a day and just do the odd bits and bobs here and there, and I'm not really working towards something. So for me, whenever I talk to musicians, the first question is always, what is it that we are trying to achieve? What's the end goal? What is that thing? What's that thing that we're trying to actually work backwards from? If I can get that, I can usually get there. So, but I'm still working on it, still work in progress, and I think I will be till the day I die.
Right, number 4.
Number 4.
And the final question.
And the final question.
What is the best way to keep a band motivated? And that is from George Griff.
Such a great question, that is. So yesterday I was talking to someone who said on one of my comments, this, whatever the video I made, this information is great, except trying to actually implement this to a band is tough, because when you're that one person in that band that's driving everything along, and everyone else isn't quite as motivated or as ambitious as that person, it can be tough. And everyone then, it becomes this kind of committee, and everybody wants a say, and everyone's got their own thoughts and their own ideas. It's very, very difficult. And I totally get that. And everyone's got their own life. This is what I would say to this question. And it's the same thing in business. This is such a selfish answer, and it's not nice. But this is competitive. This is not fair, okay? It's not about being fair. We're not in the game of being fair. Whether it comes to business, which is what we're in, entrepreneurship, which is what we have to do now as musicians, being a musician, being in a band, it's not a fair gig. So it's the same thing as yesterday. I had millions of people, because I've been doing some stuff this week about music education, and lots of people going, all of these people are leaving music college and they're just making it more noisy. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's their right to be able to do that. Your job's to be better than them. It's a competition. You don't go into the Olympics as a sprinter and go, they run faster than me, and that's not fair. It's literally who is the best at this, who works the hardest, who's the most creative. I understand music is subjectivity. Music is subjective, but there's loads of stuff that isn't subjective. Are you working hard enough? That's not subjective. Are you actually getting your music out there? That's not subjective. There's things that you can do to take the luck away from it. And so if this is the selfish answer, if the people in the band are not motivated and they aren't as ambitious as you, I'd get rid of them. It's horrible, isn't it? But it's the same thing in business, because, and I'll tell you why, is because if I get to the end of my career and I go, it didn't work out for me, but it wasn't my fault because the people that I hired or the people that I wanted to work with weren't good enough. Whose fault is that? Is that their fault? Maybe, but it's my career. so therefore it's my fault. I can only control myself. I cannot control other people. But what I can do is I can control the situation of what I am working on. And if someone isn't turning up to rehearsals, if they aren't learning the songs properly, if they aren't really in it, I would have to get rid of them and I'd have to bring people in. Because for me, if I was working on stuff because I just wanted to do it, if this was just me having a laugh, making some music for enjoyment, for fun, totally fair enough. But if I want to achieve something and I want to get to this point and I am here and it is not working, then something has to give. So it's either me or somebody else. And therefore, that's the way I look at it. So how to motivate them? Usual stuff. This is being a musician and being in a band. This is a privilege. This is not a right. So if someone needs to be motivated to actually go and do gigs or motivated to write songs and get in the studio, I mean, you guys watching this know what it's like. Everybody goes, yeah, I like going in the studio. No, we don't like going in the studio. We fucking love going in the studio. Who wants to go in the studio? Everybody wants to go in the studio. It's just brilliant. You're in the studio, you're recording. You don't get to do it that often. You know, I've done somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 gigs. I'm experienced when it comes to gigging. When it comes to studio, I'm not very experienced. I would not want to sit here and say, this is how I get a bass sound in the studio, because I have not made enough records the way I've done live gigs. I just love going in the studio. When my mates phone me up, and that has happened last week, do you want to come and play it on a bass track? I'm like, yeah, I do. That sounds really fun, because being in the studio is fun. That's a privilege. That's not a right. That's something that you should look forward to. And so therefore, if those achievements, if those exciting things that you're looking forward to aren't enough to make you do the shitty stuff, the distribution, the social media, the networking, the managing, the life on the road, if that is not enough, then you've got to get rid, you've got to find people that appreciate it. Because every time I go out and do a gig, I take the rough with the smooth. I will take the fact that when I go and do a gig, I get to hang out with my mates, I get to go on stage and have fun, I get to be creative, and I get paid for it. But the downside is I'm probably gonna have to spend 2 or 3 hours traveling to the gig. I'm gonna have to set stuff up. I'm gonna have to pack stuff down. I'm probably gonna, if it's raining or cold, I'll have to do that in the rain. I have to then travel back. I'm not gonna get home till 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna be knackered the next morning. That's the rough with the smooth. But I look at it and at the balance and I go, this outweighs it. If you need to be motivated, then this probably isn't the right industry for you. And so therefore, if you're motivated and they're not, it's up to you to do something about that. Dog eat dog, simple as that. So many bands do not make it, they do not get through, because loyalty works both ways, and someone's being loyal to someone who isn't being loyal to them back. And to me, that cannot happen. It's a positive note to end on, isn't it? Yeah. Brilliant. So if you've got any merch, then send it through, like this amazing t-shirt. Thanks, Sarah, for this. Go and check out her stuff. Sarah Brown. Otherwise, got any questions? We'll be posting every Tuesday. We'll post out an Instagram where you can get involved in that. Otherwise, I'd like to do some more Facebook and Instagram lives, but just keep the questions coming. Keep them coming through in the DMs. Keep them coming through in the comments. More importantly, if you've seen this because someone shared it, then come and be a part of this community, because we're doing this every single day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.